For the longest time, I thought our marriage was unshakable. My wife, Lisa, and I had been together for 25 years. We were that couple everyone envied, high school sweethearts who made it. Or so I thought. Looking back, I can see the cracks that started forming years ago, but at the time, I brushed them off as the natural wear and tear of a long-term relationship. Lisa always had a sharp tongue, but lately, her words had turned venomous. Little digs about my appearance, my job, or even the way I spent my weekends. I chalked it up to stress. She started spending more time out with her girlfriends or at yoga class. I wanted to trust her, so I didn't press too hard when she'd come home later than usual. But then there was the phone. Lisa used to leave her phone lying around, but suddenly, it was glued to her hand or tucked under her pillow at night. Once, I jokingly reached for it to check the time, and she snatched it away so fast you'd think it was a ticking bomb. That was the first time I truly felt uneasy. I remember sitting on the couch late one night, staring at our wedding photo on the mantel. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but I didn't have proof. Yet, little did I know my world was about to be flipped upside down. The turning point came on a Saturday morning when Lisa was in the shower. Her phone, for once, was left unattended on the kitchen counter. It was like the universe had handed me an opportunity on a silver platter. I hesitated for a moment. This was my wife, the woman I vowed to trust. But that gnawing feeling in my gut pushed me forward. The screen lit up with a message from someone named Brandon. The text read, "Can't wait for next weekend, winky face." My stomach sank. I opened their chat, my hands shaking as I scrolled through weeks of messages. What I found shattered me. Brandon wasn't just a friend or coworker. The messages were flirtatious, suggestive, and dripping with intimacy. She told him things she hadn't said to me in years, about how he made her feel young again, about how boring I had become, about how she needed excitement. The worst part? She'd been complaining about me to this man, mocking me for my routine life, my loyalty, and my love for her. The photos came next. Selfies in outfits I'd never seen her wear, clearly taken just for him. My breath hitched when I realized some of those pictures were taken in our own bedroom, the same space where we'd built a life together. The realization that she had been sharing our life with another man made my blood boil. Just as I was about to close the app, another text came in from Brandon. "So, have you told him yet? Or are you still stringing him along?" It was then that I knew this wasn't just a fling. This was a betrayal on a level I couldn't comprehend. She wasn't just lying to me. She was making a fool out of me, dragging my name through the mud for her own entertainment. I put the phone down and walked outside, my chest heaving as I tried to process what I just uncovered. The woman I had loved for 25 years, the woman I had built my entire life around, had betrayed me. And worse, she was actively plotting to replace me. I didn't know what my next move would be, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I didn't confront Lisa right away. I wanted to catch her completely off guard, to let her lies unravel in the face of undeniable evidence. That night, I pretended everything was fine. I even asked her how her yoga class went. She gave me that same practice smile, the one I now knew was hiding 1,000 lies, and rattled off some story about meditation and a new instructor. It took everything in me not to explode right then and there. The next day, I decided it was time. I waited until we were sitting together in the living room, a cup of tea in her hand and the TV playing some reality show she loved. "Lisa," I started, my voice calm but firm. "Who's Brandon?" She froze. For a split second, her face betrayed her, a flicker of panic flashing across her features before she quickly recovered. "Brandon? Oh, he's just someone from work." "Why?" Her tone was dismissive, almost condescending, like I was a fool for even asking. "Funny?" I said, pulling out my phone. "Because I saw the messages. You want to try that answer again?" The color drained from her face as I laid her phone on the coffee table. I'd taken screenshots of everything. Her messages, her photos, even her plans to meet him next weekend. She stared at the screen in silence, her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, might beg for forgiveness. Instead, she crossed her arms and sneered. So what? After 25 years, do you really expect me to be satisfied with this? She gestured at me like I was some broken-down piece of furniture. You've let yourself go, Mark. You're boring. Brandon makes me feel alive again. Her words hit me like a sledgehammer. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only was she unapologetic, but she was doubling down, blaming me for her betrayal. You've got some nerve. I shot back, my voice rising. I've given you everything. My loyalty, my love, my entire life. And this is how you repay me. Lisa rolled her eyes, her tone turning venomous. Oh, spare me the martyr act. You're just upset because someone else values me more than you do. Maybe if you'd put in a little effort, this wouldn't have happened. I stood there, stunned into silence. This wasn't just infidelity. This was cruelty. Lisa wasn't just trying to justify her actions. She was tearing me down, as if my pain was something she could dismiss with a wave of her hand. At that moment, I realized that the woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. I decided then and there that I wouldn't let her walk all over me. If she wanted to disrespect me, I'd show her exactly what I was capable of. Revenge wasn't just an option, it was inevitable. After the confrontation, Lisa acted like nothing had happened. It was as if my anger and heartbreak meant nothing to her. She went about her day with an air of smug defiance, leaving me to stew in my thoughts. I didn't know how to process her audacity until she dropped the bombshell that would push me over the edge. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table in a tense silence, Lisa casually looked up from her plate and said, "Mark, we need to talk." I braced myself, thinking she might finally apologize or show some remorse. Instead, she hit me with the most ridiculous, gut-wrenching proposal I'd ever heard. "I've been thinking," she began, swirling her wine glass like she was at some upscale event instead of our modest kitchen. "After 25 years, it's clear we need something different in our relationship. I want to bring younger men into the bedroom." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. "Excuse me," I said, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. "You heard me," she replied, her tone as nonchalant as if she were asking for a new sofa. "I need passion, Mark. Excitement. You can either accept it or not, but this is what I want. Honestly, it might even help you loosen up a bit." I couldn't believe the audacity. Not only had she cheated on me and shown no remorse, but now she was blatantly asking to turn our marriage into some kind of circus. "So let me get this straight," I said, my voice icy. "You betray me, mock me, and now you want to parade younger men into our house? Into our bedroom?" Lisa smirked. "Oh, come on, don't be so dramatic. You're always so uptight, Mark. Maybe this will be good for you, too. Who knows, you might even learn something." Her words were like a slap to the face. I couldn't fathom how someone could be so cruel, so utterly disrespectful. But in that moment, something shifted inside me. I stopped feeling like the victim. If Lisa thought she could humiliate me and get away with it, she was sorely mistaken. I leaned back in my chair, a slow grin spreading across my face. "You know what, Lisa?" I said, my tone calm and measured. "You're absolutely right. Maybe we do need something different." She looked surprised at my sudden change in demeanor, but I could see a flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. She thought she'd won, that I was going to roll over and let her take complete control. She had no idea what was coming. That night, as Lisa slept soundly in the bed she had so thoroughly disrespected, I began to plot my revenge. If she wanted to play games, I'd show her exactly what I was capable of. I wasn't just going to walk away from this. I was going to make her regret every single lie, every cruel word, every betrayal. The gloves were off. After that night, I knew I had to be smart about this. Lisa thought she had the upper hand, but she underestimated me. I wasn't going to scream, cry, or beg for her respect. That ship had sailed. Instead, I decided to make her feel the consequences of her actions in the most methodical and satisfying way possible. The first step was information. I started by digging deeper into her affair with Brandon. Late at night, while she slept, I went through her phone, her emails, even her social media accounts. I learned more than I ever wanted to know about her double life. Brandon was some gym instructor she'd met months ago. Their texts painted him as a cocky, arrogant fool who thought he could replace me. He'd even sent her a playlist titled, "For My Queen," a cringe-worthy mix of sappy love songs and cheesy anthems that made me physically recoil. But that wasn't all. I found out Lisa had been using our joint bank account to fund her little escapades. Dinners, hotel rooms, even gifts for Brandon, all paid for with money I had earned. The betrayal ran deeper than I had imagined, and the more I uncovered, the angrier I became. Then came the real discovery. While snooping through her emails, I found a document she had drafted, a separation agreement. She hadn't sent it yet, but it was clear she had been preparing to leave me once she was ready. The audacity of her planning to drain me emotionally and financially before jumping ship was the final nail in the coffin. I copied everything, her messages with Brandon, receipts from our account, and even the separation draft. I needed ammunition, and now I had plenty of it. But I wasn't going to stop there. I didn't just want to catch her in the act. I wanted to expose her, to make sure she felt every ounce of humiliation and regret she deserved. The next part of my plan required patience. I started being overly agreeable to Lisa's ridiculous demands. When she brought up the idea of younger men in our bedroom again, I laughed and said, "Sure, Lisa, whatever makes you happy." My calm demeanor threw her off. She started to think she had finally broken me, that I was submitting to her whims. Little did she know, every move she made was playing directly into my hands. I also began subtly distancing myself from her. I spent more time out of the house, reconnecting with old friends and even seeing a lawyer to discuss my options. I didn't tell anyone the full story, yet, but I made sure to lay the groundwork for what was coming. Lisa, meanwhile, grew bolder. She started dressing more provocatively, staying out even later, and barely bothering to hide her disdain for me. She probably thought I was oblivious, but I saw everything. She even tried to bring Brandon to our house one night, claiming he was just a friend. I played dumb, greeting him with a fake smile and a firm handshake. The look on his face when I squeezed his hand a little too hard was priceless. The tension in the house was palpable, but I didn't care. Every day, I inched closer to the moment when I would finally pull the rug out from under her. If Lisa wanted a younger man in the bedroom, I was going to give her a reality check she'd never forget. And Brandon? He'd regret ever stepping into my life. I wasn't just planning to end this marriage. I was planning to end it with style. The time to act was drawing closer. I couldn't just confront her again and let her weasel her way out with more lies. No, I wanted her betrayal laid bare, for everyone to see. It wasn't enough for her to know she had hurt me. I needed her to feel humiliated, exposed, and utterly powerless. My plan started with a party. Lisa loved hosting gatherings, so I suggested we throw a small get-together for some of our friends and neighbors. At first, she looked at me suspiciously, as though wondering if I had an ulterior motive. But when I kept acting like the same agreeable, defeated husband I'd been pretending to be, she jumped at the idea. Of course, she thought it was her triumph, me finally coming around to make her happy. Over the next week, Lisa went into full party planning mode, reveling in the chance to show off. She bought expensive decorations, ordered catered food, and even bragged to her friends about how Mark was finally being supportive for once. Little did she know this party wasn't for her. It was for me. On the day of the event, I made sure everything was perfect. I even helped Lisa set up, playing the role of the doting husband who just wanted to please his wife. Meanwhile, I'd carefully orchestrated the guest list. Along with our close friends, I had discreetly invited Brandon. I'd sent him a message from Lisa's phone, playing on his ego and suggesting it was finally time for him to meet her circle. He was more than happy to accept. But that wasn't all. I also reached out to a few mutual friends who had always had my back, hinting that they should stick around after the party for something they wouldn't want to miss. When the evening arrived, Lisa was in her element. She wore a dress I hadn't seen before, one I was sure Brandon had bought for her, and she flitted around the room, laughing and chatting as though she didn't have a care in the world. When Brandon showed up, she froze for a moment, glancing nervously in my direction. I gave her a reassuring smile, pretending not to notice their subtle exchanges. I even made small talk with Brandon, masking my disdain behind polite conversation. The real show began about an hour into the party. I'd set up a hidden speaker system linked to my phone, which I had hidden in a back room. At the perfect moment, I excused myself from the group and hit play on the audio recordings I had compiled. The first thing everyone heard was Lisa's unmistakable voice. "You don't understand. Brandon makes me feel alive. Mark's just so boring. He doesn't excite me anymore." The room fell silent as her words echoed through the speakers. Then came Brandon's voice, cocky and smug. "Well, it's only a matter of time before you're rid of him, right?" Lisa's face turned ghostly pale as everyone in the room turned to look at her. The recordings continued, detailing their plans to meet, their insults about me, and their twisted little fantasy of life without me. I watched as Lisa's carefully crafted facade crumbled before my eyes. "Mark, what the hell is this?" she stammered, her voice shaking. "This," I said, stepping back into the room, "is the truth. You've spent months lying to me, humiliating me, and plotting behind my back. I thought it was only fair everyone else got to hear what you've been up to." Brandon bolted for the door, but not before I handed him a folder containing every bit of evidence I had collected. Screenshots, receipts, and even a copy of Lisa's draft separation agreement. "You might want to reconsider your future plans," I said coldly as he stumbled out, his face flushed with shame. As for Lisa, she didn't even try to defend herself. The guests, our friends, our neighbors, looked at her with disgust and pity. The humiliation was complete. And as the party came to an abrupt end, I turned to Lisa, who was still standing there, frozen in shock. "After 25 years, you said you wanted younger men in our bedroom," I said with a bitter laugh. "I hope it was worth it, Lisa, because now you get to enjoy your life without me. And without my money, my house, or my respect." Her face twisted with anger, but I didn't stick around to listen to her excuses. I had taken the first steps toward reclaiming my life, and I wasn't looking back. After the party, the aftermath hit like a hurricane. Lisa's humiliation was the talk of our social circle. Word spread fast, as it always does in situations like these, and it didn't take long for her to realize just how much damage had been done. Friends who had once sided with her started distancing themselves. Even her so-called yoga buddies didn't want anything to do with her. Lisa tried to control the narrative, of course. She told anyone who would listen that I was petty and vindictive, that I had set her up. But the evidence spoke for itself. Screenshots, audio recordings, receipts. There was no denying the truth. And while she was busy doing damage control, I was focused on the next stage of my plan. The first thing I did was meet with my lawyer. I wasn't going to let Lisa walk away with a single dime more than she deserved. Using the receipts I had gathered, I proved that she had used our joint funds to bankroll her affair. My lawyer was sharp, and together we filed for divorce on grounds of infidelity. Not only that, but we also moved to freeze the joint accounts so she couldn't drain them before the proceedings were over. Lisa, of course, was furious when she found out. She stormed into the house one evening, shouting about how I was ruining her life. I didn't even flinch. "You ruined your own life, Lisa," I said calmly. "I'm just making sure you don't take me down with you." Her behavior became increasingly erratic. One moment, she'd be begging me to reconsider, saying we could work things out. The next, she'd be screaming at me, calling me every name in the book. It was pathetic to watch, really. The woman who had once prided herself on being composed and in control was now unraveling before my eyes. Then came Brandon. The coward actually tried to reach out to me, through an email of all things. He apologized for how things turned out, and claimed he didn't know Lisa was still married. A blatant lie, considering all the evidence I had of their conversations. I didn't bother responding. Let him deal with the mess he'd gotten himself into. Meanwhile, Lisa's life continued to crumble. She lost her job after her employer got wind of the scandal. Turns out, one of the guests at the party was her boss's wife. With her reputation in tatters and her finances frozen, Lisa was forced to rely on the kindness of the very friends she had alienated. Not many were willing to help. As for me, I was finally starting to feel like myself again. I moved out of the house temporarily while the divorce was being processed and stayed with an old college buddy who had always had my back. It felt good to be around people who supported me, who reminded me of the person I was before Lisa's betrayal. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one final piece of revenge I needed to deliver. Something that would ensure Lisa never forgot the consequences of her actions. Something that would make it clear I wasn't a man to be underestimated. The stage was set for the final act. Lisa had taken everything for granted. My love, my trust, my loyalty. Now she would learn what it felt like to lose it all. The final part of my plan came together beautifully, almost poetically. Lisa thought she had seen the worst of it after the party, but she underestimated how much more I had in store. She had taken my kindness, my patience, and my love for granted, and I wanted her to fully understand what it felt like to lose everything she had so carelessly destroyed. First, I sold the house. Well, to be fair, our house wasn't entirely ours. It was in my name, a little detail Lisa had conveniently forgotten over the years. After consulting with my lawyer, I put it on the market. Lisa was served with a notice to vacate just a few weeks later. When she confronted me, her face red with rage, I simply said, "You didn't value our home when you were sneaking Brandon into it. Why should you get to keep it?" I had already rented a new place for myself, one closer to work and far away from the painful memories tied to that house. Lisa, on the other hand, was scrambling. She tried begging to stay, tried threatening me with legal action, but it was no use. The law was on my side. Her face when she realized she was losing the house was priceless. The cherry on top, the buyers were a young couple just starting their lives together. I made sure to tell them to cherish the home and never take their love for granted. That little jab didn't go unnoticed by Lisa, and the glare she shot me could have burned a hole through steel. Next, I exposed her lies to her family. Lisa had always painted herself as the victim, as the long-suffering wife who put up with an unmotivated husband. She had been spinning this narrative for years, so her parents and siblings were initially cold toward me after the party. But when I sent them the evidence of her affair, screenshots, audio clips, and even a copy of the separation agreement she had drafted, they quickly changed their tune. Her family was furious with her. Her parents, who had always been traditional and valued loyalty, openly expressed their disappointment. Her brother, who I had always gotten along with, even called me to apologize on behalf of their family. Lisa had lost not just my respect, but the respect of the people closest to her. But the piece de resistance came when I went public with her affair in the most unexpected way. Lisa had always loved social media, posting pictures of her perfect life, carefully curated to make everyone jealous. So I used that against her. With the help of a few tech-savvy friends, I compiled all the evidence of her betrayal into a neat little package and uploaded it to a private album. I didn't make it public, of course. I'm not cruel. But I did send it directly to a select group of mutual friends who had been blindly siding with her. The fallout was instant. Her remaining friends, those who hadn't already turned their backs on her, began distancing themselves too. People who had admired her for years now saw her for who she truly was. And Lisa, she couldn't handle the shame. One day, she showed up at my new place, disheveled and desperate. "Mark, please," she sobbed, tears streaming down her face. "I made a mistake. We can fix this. Let's try again." I stood there, looking at the woman I had once loved, and felt nothing. No anger, no pity, no desire to reconcile. "Lisa," I said, my voice steady, "you wanted younger men in our bedroom. You wanted excitement. You got it. Now live with it." And I closed the door in her face. That was the last time I saw Lisa. But there was still one final piece of revenge left. Something just for me, to remind myself of how far I'd come. I took the money from the sale of the house and booked a long trip abroad. New places, new faces, new memories. Things that had nothing to do with Lisa or the life I had built around her lies. In the end, I didn't just take my life back. I rebuilt it stronger than ever. Lisa, on the other hand, was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered reputation. I guess she learned the hard way. Betrayal has a cost, and I made sure she paid every cent of it. It's been months now since the chaos finally settled, and for the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. The divorce was finalized swiftly, thanks to the ironclad evidence I had provided. Lisa tried to fight for spousal support, but her infidelity ensured that she walked away with far less than she expected. In the end, all she got was her personal belongings, a battered reputation, and the empty promise of a better life she thought Brandon would give her. As for Brandon, he didn't stick around. Surprise, surprise. The younger man who made her feel alive wasn't interested in a long-term commitment with a woman whose life was crumbling. I heard through the grapevine that he ghosted her not long after the party. The poetic justice of it all was almost too sweet. Lisa gambled everything on her fantasy, and she lost it all. The house is gone, the marriage is over, and I'm finally free of the toxic cycle that Lisa had trapped me in for so long. I've started rebuilding my life, focusing on myself for the first time in decades. The trip abroad was everything I needed. Beautiful scenery, new friendships, and the realization that the world is much bigger than the bubble I had allowed myself to live in. The emotional impact of Lisa's betrayal will always be a part of me. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have moments where the memories still hurt. But those moments are fleeting now. They've been replaced by a growing sense of pride, knowing I handled the situation on my terms. I didn't let her lies break me. I didn't let her disrespect define me. I took control, stood my ground, and showed her, and myself, that I deserved better. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: loyalty is a precious gift, and it should never be given to someone who doesn't value it. Lisa took my loyalty and used it against me, but in the end, her betrayal taught me more than I ever thought possible. Taught me my own worth. It taught me how to set boundaries, how to recognize red flags, and how to walk away from anyone who doesn't treat me with the respect I deserve. To anyone who's reading this and going through something similar, I know how devastating betrayal can be. I know how it eats at your soul, how it makes you question everything about yourself. But let me tell you this: you're stronger than you think. You can take back control. You can rebuild. And when you do, you'll look back and realize that the person who betrayed you didn't break you. They freed you. I've started dating again cautiously, and it feels different. For the first time in years, I'm prioritizing what I want, what I need, rather than bending over backward for someone who doesn't deserve it. And honestly, it's liberating.
Lisa.
I don't know what she's doing now, and I don't care. Her chapter in my life is over. My story isn't about her anymore. It's about me. And that's the best revenge of all. So, to everyone who's been in my shoes, hold your head high, fight for what you deserve, and never let anyone take your dignity. Because in the end, you'll come out stronger. I know I did.